Good morning, folks. I'm going to hope everyone's doing well. I'm going to call to order the Thursday, it says, oh, that's the minutes from the last one. Okay, let me get my title page. I was going to say it's not April 11th. It's May 13th, 2024. So welcome, everybody. This is the Planning, Energy, and Environmental Quality Committee. And so, Brittany, do we have anybody for public comment?
No.
Okay. And I have one proposed change to the agenda, and then we'll open it up and see if there's any other ones. Just a little bit in the order of things when we get down to the Department of Planning and Sustainability. I'd like to move the item D up to between B and C, because that would allow Abigail from planning to do both of her things together. Any issues with that? Any other proposed changes? Okay. We have a lot on our agenda today and several presentations, but I think we'll still be able to keep to the agenda, but I'll keep us apprised of as we go along for timing. Let's see what else. Next, we have minutes approval. These are from April 11th. Would anybody like to move those? Randy moves those. Amanda seconds. Any questions, comments, corrections? All right, all those in favor? That passes unanimously. Thank you for doing those, Brittany. I will note that Legislator Veronica Pillar isn't here in the chambers yet, but hopefully they'll be here momentarily. Next, we have advisory board appointment, and that we have one today. That's for the Environmental Management Council. John Aloysius, if I'm pronouncing that partly correct, I hope, Zinda. That's a member for the EMC, and that term expires December 31st, 2025. Can anybody move that? Moved by Randy, seconded by Greg. All right, all those in favor? That passes unanimously. Thanks, everybody. And thank you, John Aloysius Cinda, for serving on the EMC. Chair's report. Just one thing I wanted to mention today that I know I was talking about this with some other legislators, and I just wanted to think about as we're going along that if sometimes we might ask, you know, administration or a department to do something, even if it's a minor thing, I'm thinking just out of procedurally, I think we should remember that if we're going to ask, it should be the committee. So let's just make sure, and that's also a big reminder to myself as chair, just make sure we're getting the consensus versus just somebody asking, even if it's something little, or we might think it's little, but we don't always know. And also a reminder, if we do ask staff or anybody in the community to do something, ask about how big a job that is. And so, and sometimes it could be deferred. Like we could say, okay, let's think about that, and maybe we'll wait, find out how big a job it is, or go to the chair of or vice chair of the legislature and just check on that, because I know everybody has their work plans for the year. So just something that was in my head. And that's all I had for the chair's report. And Norma, do you have anything for the county administrator's report?
I don't really have any reports. I just want to remind the committee that we are going to begin looking at budgets. Departments to start putting theirs together. So if you have questions about programs particularly, you might start asking folks to come in.
Okay. And I know that EMC had wished, and well, they'll be here in a little bit, but they had wished that they had asked for money ahead of time, you know, to help with some of their programming this year, but maybe they'll ask for a little bit of money for next year. So that actually gets us speeding right along. So let's see, Kate Darfler is here from the Environmental Management Council. So this gets us right into our annual reports from the advisory boards. We have two today, the Environmental Management Council and the Tompkins County Water Resources Council. So we'll do the EMC first. And good morning, Kate. We have Kate Darfler, who's the chair of that council. And we'll give you probably about 15, 20 minutes if you need it for your presentation, and room for Q&A. We have time.
About 5 minutes, so.
Okay, if you could stretch that, no, 5 minutes is fine. Just talk slowly. Thank you.
Thank you all. It's good to be here. I'm sorry I can't be there in person today. Was in front of the peak after our conference, and so a lot of what we did last year was focused on the NISAC, the New York State Association of Conservation Commission's annual conference, which the EMC was the host for. And that's primarily what you'll have seen in our annual report was our focus on that conference. So that maybe I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about today. The other things that we certainly did, we had 3 sort of still active committees. We had our unique natural areas, our UNA committee, which was continuing to work on their revisions of all the UNAs, and that will actually be kind of coming to a culmination this year. So you'll hopefully be seeing a lot more of us talking about that and getting it rolled out into the communities, getting updates in each community, and doing a public presentation this fall on the UNA work. In addition, we had a climate adaptation committee that continued at work, and they really focused on outreach around flooding and extreme heat in Tompkins County. And we also had our education outreach committee, which, although they were doing a lot of work with the conference, they also got out in the community and were talking to people at Earth Day events. And in addition, we are continuing up with the Green Scene email, and if you're not on the Green Scene, I highly recommend it if you want to stay in the loop on environmental activities going on in the county. It comes out every 2 weeks, and that's something that the EMC has decided is really kind of a priority to do, and we're continuing it on this year, even though we don't have an official committee to keep it going. And so instead of, I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have about what we did last year based on the report that we did, but then I also am here to talk a little bit about what we're planning in the upcoming year. So maybe I'll pause and see if there's any questions first.
Okay. And that annual report starts on packet page 14 and 15. Any questions or comments on the report or what they've done this year before they go into next year's activities? Amanda.
Hi, Kate. Good to see you virtually. I was just wondering about the committee members. I mean, I know in the past it's been hard to get enough folks to participate from the community. How is that going? Do you feel like you have enough community, active members, or are you kind of always seeking more?
Yes, always seeking more. Part of that is going to change this year because of the fact that the county is trying to restructure the way we're doing bylaws. The EMC is going to be forced to restructure in some sort of way. So I'm kind of not as worried about it as I probably should be because we're going to have to do this big restructuring this year. And that's part of what I can talk about next. But always, we have really good input from the municipalities that have some sort of conservation advisory group. So if there is something like that in a municipality, we often can get a member from that community. But there are municipalities and there are villages and townships that don't have that. And that's where I think we struggle the most, is because there's not already that nucleus and that feeder of people getting involved in their community on these issues to move into the EMC. The other place we're really locking someone is from the city of Ithaca. Okay. We haven't had a City of Ithaca representative since Tom Shelley left.
Right.
And that is a huge deficit. Wow. So we've been trying, we've been continuing. So if anyone from the City of Ithaca can be on our committee, that is a place that we are definitely lacking.
Okay, maybe Veronica, who lives in the city, could gather some of her neighbors to sign up.
Sure. Can I clarify, do you mean anyone who lives in the city or someone from the government organization, City of Ithaca?
Well, ideally it's someone who sits on the city's climate sustainability advisory group, whatever they have, which they now know has been restructured to be that sustainability and climate justice, I think, committee. So ideally, it's someone who is engaged in what the city is doing on environmental and sustainability issues. So they don't have to be like.
I'll do my best.
Employee.
Thanks, Veronica, for agreeing to at least look into the folks in their district. Anything else, Amanda?
Maybe, but I've forgotten, so.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. Let's see, on packet, so it's our packet, page 20, where you talk about public education materials. For Earth Day, the committee created and distributed flyers on flooding preparedness and response. And you talk about how they were shared at different events and with different groups. And I know we had talked between just you and I, Kate, regarding the website, the Tompkins County website, how that's being updated, and you said that you and your group were updating their portion of that. I was just wondering, is that something that the information from that flyer, could that be posted there, or just how people can access that information?
Yeah, that is a hope, is that with this reorganization, we can actually be a little bit more timely with our website updates. Right now, it kind of ends up being like a really couple of years later, we finally get everything up on the website. And I think once we kind of streamline it with this, and part of what, again, Amanda brought up the bylaws, here you bring up the website. That's something we're looking at this year as part of the counties moving to a new system. We're updating our pages, and we've greatly reduced the number of pages that the EMC is going to quote unquote own, will be under our structure. And I think that'll make it easier to keep it updated, so that when we do produce materials, that it is going to be more available, easily uploadable and available to the public.
Okay.
So that is a goal of ours.
Great, because I know the subcommittee on climate adaptation that Reggie Teasley chairs, that you had some information on flooding and excessive heat too, which I think are
we have presentations
issues.
we have presentations that committee was giving that we would love to put up there. Just anyone can scroll through it and look at it. It's got links to really useful websites and little videos and snippets. So that is our goal, is to put all of that up there.
Okay, and then my last question is our packet page 20, where you talked about key questions and concerns raised by participants, highlighted the need for accessible emergency information, transportation planning, and rural considerations, regarding emergencies, that might happen, such as flooding or heat emergencies. Is this information that's being passed on to our planning department, or do you have or somehow does it input our emergency preparedness plans?
Yeah, it hasn't in a really like a structured way. It's more been an informal conversations, but that was the key takeaways that committee came from a lot of their conversations they were having in the community. Unfortunately, with the moving on of the chair, that committee is actually not existing this year. We've kind of moved away from a committee structure. And so a lot of the work has kind of been put on hold that they were kind of working on.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Kate? Okay, all right. So just one last comment I wanted to say, where you talked about the NISAC. You're a NISAC. I mean, we have a different acronym with as many C's. But for your NISAC conference that you did here, that your group did here last year, I just wanted to say again that it was really well put on. I really enjoyed it and learned quite a lot, and I liked the interactivity, the different modals of learning that you had with it, and glad to hear that the state now, or at least another group, is looking at using your template for how you did the conference, since you guys were working from scratch on that. So thank you for creating that model for other groups around the state, how to do their conferences.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah, the state organization of NISAC, kind of took our information and I helped build their kind of procedure and their template. And so next year it's going to be, I guess it's this year, is going to be up in the Tug Hill Commission area up near Watertown. And so hopefully a contingency from Tompkins County will be going to that as well. But it was a very successful conference, so we were happy that it went so well.
Okay, great. So what are you planning for next year?
So, well, for this year now.
For this
Here we
year.
are. And now in this year, as we're already 5 months in. So this year, what we came out of last year with the conference was we started building connections. And this was connections to all of these statewide groups through doing the conference. It was bringing people to Tompkins County. And so what we kind of decided to do this year was to focus on connections. And that meant both internal to the EMC as a whole and external to the various places that the EMC supports or engages with. So that has looked like, shifting up our meeting structure a little bit. We've been doing kind of a interactive, try to get to know each other a little bit more. We are still meeting by Zoom, so that kind of informal, get to know your neighbor, chat with people, doesn't happen in the same way. So we've been trying to build that into our meetings. We did host again, this is our second annual gathering of the conservation group boards for all the municipalities into one location together. So our May meeting was a joint one of all the CACs or conservation board CBs or conservation advisory committees or however they call them in each municipality. And the EMC at Stewart Park. We did it last year, it was really successful. We decided to do it again this year, also very successful. Annie, thank you for coming and attending. And it was a great time. People really enjoyed the conversation. We went around and kind of talked about what each little conservation group is working on in their community, where they're struggling, where their challenges are. A lot of the groups are struggling with getting volunteers, getting people to come and show up and do the work that they need to do. That seems to be a universal challenge across all of the volunteer boards. And so this is something that we're going to be continuing. I think we're going to be continuing on as something that the EMC is really a unique place to do that, is to grab all the conservation groups that are operating in each municipality and bring them together to share. And we do that through our liaisons that we have, our representatives, normally each month, but to actually all get together face-to-face was really helpful. As I mentioned, we are going to be updating our website, and that is part of our connection to the community and how we're kind of presenting ourselves and moving it to be a little bit more accessible to everyone, and so that the information is actually a little bit more up to date and simpler. We are going to be changing our bylaws, which I mentioned with Amanda's question, and this is going to probably require some restructuring in the EMC. For a long time, we've operated with a huge flexible margin of the number of seats we're allowed to have, and it actually isn't serving us anymore, especially if we want to maintain quorum with being 50% of available seats. And so we're going to have to find a new way to restructure. We're kind of working that right now through executive and hopefully presenting it to a proposal of something to consider to the EMC next month. But we're going to have to shrink the way that we do seats. Maybe looking at something where we're doing more with where communities actually have, advisory, sustainable advisory committees or conservation boards, and those are given seats. Relying more on associate membership to kind of fill out the membership to be a fostering ground. That's where you first try out the EMC, where you first come to it. So we're still exploring that, but that is something that we'll be bringing forward to the legislature probably later this year. And we've also done a little bit away with the way we're doing committee structures. We're not having kind of formal committees except for the UNA because they have a specific work plan and goal for the end of the year to get out the UNA revisions. But we removed the kind of this more everyone going to another monthly meeting part of the way that the EMC has operated for a really long time and moved to more task-oriented groups. So we have groups who are helping with the bylaws, we have groups helping with the website, we have groups that are helping with the UNA, and then we have groups helping look at 5-year plans or how to do a really interesting understanding of the environmental landscape in Tompkins County. And that seems to be working better for our current membership base because it doesn't require an extra monthly meeting in addition to, for committee work in addition to what they've already been doing. So that's a little bit of a snapshot of what we're looking at this year.
Great, thank
And
you.
I'm happy to answer more questions if there are any.
Yeah, we have one from Amanda.
Well, not a question, but just thank you for, you know, I know the changing the bylaws is a big deal, and it took us at the legislature a long time to rework our own policy and all of that, but I know that that means a lot of, you know, extra thought on your part, and but thank you for doing that and thinking through how the council can work most efficiently. And I do hope that, you know, once you get through the changing process, that it is beneficial to the group, and, you know, people feel like they can be more effective in that way. So I know it's a lot more work, but thank you.
Yeah, and we're along that lines. I wanted to kind of bring up for consideration, maybe with the whole legislature, but certainly with this committee, is, you know, the EMC is limited by our membership in many, many ways. And one of the ways that the county has limited our membership is by requiring that our members, even though they're volunteer and an advisory committee, be U.S. citizens. And we have a huge, and citizens, not just residents or anything like that. And we have a huge population of people who are not U.S. citizens that are in our community and are engaged and want to be a part of the environmental movement. And so, and especially with students and faculty and graduate students. And so just wanted to bring that up and make sure that that's being considered, because anything that limits the people that engage in a board like ours is not beneficial, probably not beneficial. So.
Right, and I can't remember, maybe you can remember, or maybe Brittany does, but do folks have to also be a resident of Tompkins County? Yeah, to be to be a voting member. They can be associate members, right, okay. So yeah. I feel like we've talked about that in the past, and but we can certainly, you know, continue talking about if that makes sense, or if there's exceptions to the rule or whatnot. But thanks for bringing that up.
Right. Yeah, and we'll follow what the rules are for now, but just, you know, continue to keep thinking about it as an organization.
Thank you. Randy and then Veronica.
Yes, Kate, thank you for the presentation information. My question is about UNAs, and I assume you mean unique natural areas. Is that what that stands for? Okay, when you're updating your website or the data on those, is there data in that shows whether these UNAs are accessible to the public? Meaning they can go to them or can't go to them, or that type of thing?
Yeah, so it's really interesting with the UNAs is back many years ago when the UNAs were first established, it was kind of considered something that we weren't going to share universally with the public, because a lot of them were very sensitive species that were in these locations, and there is a fear of people flocking to this area and then actually impacting those very sensitive species. So the information about the UNAs can only be obtained through the municipalities or through the county by asking the county planning department, or through the municipalities via their library. That each one will have one about the UNAs, and it will say in those if they're publicly available or if it's privately held. But the county does have a listing, I think, of the publicly available UNAs, but maybe someone from planning, Darby might be on too, and may be able to help. But part of it is wanting to update, when we update the UNA website, is to update it and kind of pull in that information to say, like, how do you know what UNAs you can go to? How do you know which UNAs you shouldn't go to? And we don't want, you know, people tramping around some, you know, vernal pool to go try to find some plant that is unique, but we really don't want folks going there. So that's something that I can put down and make sure we're kind of really clear on our website update.
Great, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Veronica.
Oh, sorry. Well, I wanted to follow up on the members need to be citizens thing. That does seem limiting in a way that I'd like to look into. I don't think this committee is the one.
Citizens rather than residents, you mean?
Yeah, well, it sounds like members of the EMC, and I don't know if it's all of our advisory boards need to be residents of the county, but also citizens of the United States.
Yes.
That's,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
I think that would go through GO if we wanted to talk about that.
Right. I just wanted to flag that, and I was hesitating because I was watching our GO committee chair walk away from the room, but she's back now, so that's all. And thank you, as always, for coming and sharing what you're up to.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else for Kate? All right, anything else for us, Kate?
No, and I'm sorry I did take more than 5 minutes now, but you guys had great questions.
Well, we budgeted for that. So Brittany helped us budget for that. So you're right on time. So thank you so much, Kate.
Thank you, guys.
Great to see you.
Take care.
Thank you.
And next up, we have the Tompkins County Water Resources Council yearly update. That's packet page 24. And we have the chair from that group, Cynthia Brock, also a former Ithaca City Council person. So welcome, Cynthia. And we'll have about maybe like 15 minutes if you need that much, and then a few minutes for Q&A.
Yes, wonderful. Well, thank you, of course, for having me here. It's always great to see you, and nice to see everybody in person again. So I'll just try to go over a brief overview of the annual report, which you have in your packet. Just a reminder that the Tompkins County Water Resources Council serves as an advisory board to the legislature on matters related to water resource management and planning. Our mission is to identify problems, propose priorities, and facilitate coordination of activities to protect our county's water resources. Additionally, it provides a forum for local communities and stakeholders to discuss their water resource concerns while fostering collaboration among local governments, public and private institutions, agencies, and organizations throughout the county. I will provide a brief review of our major committees. Our Education and Outreach Committee this year completed and produced our second edition of the Cayuga Lake Clean Boating Map. This detailed map provides information on how to clean your boat to stop the spread of invasive species such as hydrilla and zebra mussels, how to identify harmful algal blooms, and the importance of managing your waste properly. The map also provides information on boating and recreational amenities throughout the lake and was updated in this version with current information.
Is this the current one? Just one?
It is absolutely beautiful. It is a keepsake. I think it's something to be proud of. 3,000 maps were printed and distributed throughout the 3 watershed counties. Cayuga and Seneca counties each purchased 500 maps for distribution in their counties as well. The Executive Committee supports the WRC in issuing letters of comment and advocacy to local, state, and federal agencies in cases where a timely response is needed and it doesn't meet the deadlines don't align with our meeting schedule. In 2023, the Executive Committee requested engagement by New York State DEC as well as the EPA for the completion of the TMDL, or the total maximum daily load for phosphorus in Cayuga Lake. We were informed by the DEC that the TMDL was going to be completed last summer, and as of this date, that has not yet happened. Surprise. We provided comments to the DEC on the state's solid waste management plan. We requested suspension of all wastewater biosolids applications until they can be tested and demonstrated to be free of per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances, otherwise known as PFAS, contamination. We further supported establishment of PFAS monitoring protocols, emphasizing the need for robust state-supported financial and administrative measures to avoid placing undue burdens on taxpayers and small treatment plant operators. The Executive Committee additionally sent letters of support for various grant applications, as well as a letter to Governor Hochul highlighting the lack of a publicly available environmental impact statement for the Cargill salt mine, and emphasizing the need for public input and transparency, and requested information on the mine's future. We have not received a response to that. The WRC's monitoring partnership consists of members from stakeholder agencies and partners that support the work of watershed management. And this year, they secured funding for water quality modeling projects, discussed opportunities for identifying priority projects for the reduction of phosphorus using Community Science Institute data, and discuss this with Finger Lakes Hub staff. And, you know, the Tompkins County supports CSI. We're very grateful and appreciative of that support. A tremendous amount of data and information is compiled on an annual basis, and of course, we're always looking for trends and changes, and so the ongoing support for CSI is essential and appreciated. The monitoring partnership reviewed the state's response to the Owasco Lake Watershed Rules and Regulations and drafted a letter that supported that was approved by the WRC, expressing our concern for the state's revisions to the Owasco rules and regs that would diminish the existing protections that they would revise for this important drinking water source. We have a membership and nominating committee, and they continue in their key role of recruiting and nominating new members. The WRC has 21 voting members, as well as non-voting ex officio members and associate members. I cannot express the importance of the work of County Planner Darby Kiley in helping us recruit this amazing group of people, as well as to her support for the WRC at large. We have a municipal training committee. This year they hosted 2 sessions. One was part of the Broome-Tioga Stormwater Coalition Stormwater Training Program, and they provided an online opportunity in March that was made available at the County Public Works Facility. 11 individuals from 5 municipalities in Tompkins County participated in that training session free of charge. In November, Darby Kiley and Christian Hitchka hosted a webinar demonstrating various mapping tools and resources that are available online to help county municipal boards understand land uses and environmental resources that are available. A link to this to a comprehensive guide and overview of this tools is available both in the annual report on the WRC website. I encourage everyone to take a look. The power of these tools is incredibly impressive. And really should not be missed. And I'm really grateful to Darby and Christian for putting together sort of a clear and digestible overview of what's available. We have a watershed coordination committee. This is basically a collaboration with the WRC and regional partners that comes together to meet and respond to things like the Finger Lakes Action Agenda and the TMDL when it becomes available. They didn't really meet this year. Our Rules and Regulations Committee includes representatives from the Tompkins County Whole Health Department and our 3 surface water public drinking water utilities. This would include Bolton Point, City of Ithaca, and Cornell. All of these utilities have either developed or are pursuing what is called the Drinking Water Source Protection Plan. So this committee meets to talk about and share their progress through this process. They also have been actively watching the Owasco Rules and Regulations process. And just want to say that they were engaging with the state about the Owasco Lake rules and regs. The state has stopped giving updates to us. So we'll have to see how this goes. Anyway, that sort of sums up the activities of the WRC. I will say that going into this year, we will be updating our water quality strategy report that gets updated every 3 years. We'll be actively doing a brainstorming session on this at our May 20th meeting at 4:15. We're actually going to be meeting in person at the County Public Works Conference Room on Boswick Road. We would be very interested to hear from the legislature if there are issues that you would like us to take action on, if you have any suggestions or recommendations on how we can better advise and support the county legislature. If you have questions about water resources and any advice on how best to deliver this information or engagement to you. So really look forward to having the legislature be a part of this process.
Okay, great. Thank you for the presentation, Cynthia. I'll open up to questions or responses to the questions that you asked of us. Amanda. And are you our current rep? This says Susan Curry was last year's, but you're our 2024 rep to this group.
I am this year, yeah, and I was for several years before that. So my first question I should know because I'm back on the committee, but previously there was a HABS action committee that Darby was managing and I was going to, and I was just wondering if that is still, it was like a smaller group talking about HABs.
I don't think we have that group as part of the WRC right now. I'm going to look to Darby, who I think is on this meeting, if she can provide more information.
Yeah, the committee that we formed that you were on, Amanda, we did a HAB strategy. So we took the state's HABs action plan that came out in 2018 and made it more specific for Tompkins County and came up with the HAB strategy. And a lot of the strategy action items were then included in the 2021-2024 water quality strategy that we're doing now. So that was kind of a one-time committee to do a working document that then, you know, a lot of those action items became things that either WRC itself was working on or other agencies within the county.
Great, thank you. That clears up my question about that. My second question is for Greg. Do you have this at your marina?
So we actually have the last version framed in our shop. And so I was going to actually comment that we just got a box of the new ones because we give them out quite frequently and people find them incredibly useful. So it's a really great detailed resource, and I'm grateful that somebody's putting this type of information together. So thank you. And we have to reframe the new side with the updated information, but just haven't got there yet. So it's greatly appreciated, and I know it's widely used, at least with our customers in the Lansing area and south end of Ithaca of the lake.
Wonderful.
So
that's
thank
great
you.
News.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then I was also just going to say that this was this year, but a couple weeks ago we had a tour of Bolton Point, which I'd never been to before, and I found that to be very fascinating and interesting. Veronica was there, and I really appreciated the opportunity to do that. So you can report about that in next year's annual report.
Wonderful.
And then I'll ask you the same question I asked Kate about membership. And my perception is that the WRC tends to have a robust, you know, there's a lot of people who want to be on it and participate. But from your perspective, do you find that it's hard to find volunteers? Or are there, I don't think there's a lot of open seats, right? Like it's.
There are certain seats that tend to be challenging to fill. We have a seat slated for someone from the business community. That is a seat that I think has been a challenge ongoing. That's the main one, as I recall.
Okay. It seemed, my memory is that when one person, you know, terms off, there's usually, you have a very good nominating committee that finds people who want to fill that seat, so.
And we're deeply appreciative to them. A lot of our work tends to be more on the sciences side, making sure that we're making recommendations on information and data that is available. So we tend to draw from a pool that is already very active in water resources management in one form or another.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Randy?
Yeah, thanks, Cynthia. The water's so important. We're so lucky to have so much of it here and pretty much good quality, so.
Yes.
I was curious, what kind of communication or data do you get from the Soil and Water Board on the projects that they're doing? Do they share with you the things they're doing to improve runoff problems? And like they're doing work in 6 Mile Creek, they're doing all these projects in all these creeks. I was curious if that was shared with.
Yes, funny you should say that. So at Monday's meeting, this coming Monday, we will be receiving our annual report from the County Soil and Water District, both on the projects that they've done and their work plan into the future.
Okay, so do they, you know, I've been on the board and I'm so unfamiliar with what's happened before I got on the board, but I know they're getting more money being provided for more projects in the next coming years. So I just want to make sure you were getting that.
Yes,
stuff.
we typically get an annual update.
Okay. Also, you're very familiar with the problem in the jungle and the contamination of the water down there. Do you speak directly to DC? Is that left to like the health department, or who's notifying the DC? How do we know we're getting a good response from them for their view on cleaning it up? Or, I mean, how do we know if they're doing anything other than just getting a letter from us? So, for example, the DEC, I know, has been informed that there are needles all over the water. I have a friend who lives out by Myers Park, and he's picking up needles off his beach. And the needles are flowing all over the county. They've got to be in Myers Park. They've got to be everywhere. And he goes at least once a week. He gave me 4 syringes that he picked up on 100 feet of shore. So I just want to make sure that the DEC is that our responsibility as a county, or who's in charge of making sure these people are held accountable to doing something?
So I will take off my water resources hat. That is, we wouldn't get down into the granular level with regards to that type of instance. I will say from my former city council person's hat, who the jungle was in my ward, as you know, a lot of the activities was shared with members from the Tompkins County Department of Health. I did not personally reach out to the DEC. I did reach out to the Department of Health and make them aware of issues as they were coming up.
And they have issued notice of violation, if you saw that or not.
Yes, I was very grateful that after many years that has been done.
I'm in agreement with that. And the other one is I saw a movie recently called Common Ground. It was at Sinnopolis, and it's about soil health. Mm-hmm. And what was really interesting is they talked about how if you do practices that aren't tilling the whole fields, how much water can be retained. And it's like 500% more water can be retained by a field that is not completely tilled versus when it's a no-till or slightly tilled or cover crops. There's a lot of cover crop things going on with soil and water. So I just want to make sure that I thought that was very interesting. So I'll pass that along to other people in the
Yes,
agro.
and we used to have a very active soil health committee within the WRC. Some active members have since retired and moved on, and we haven't been as active in that committee, but definitely whatever we can do to educate and inform farmers, landlords, or landholders about the importance of incorporating organics into your soil, as you mentioned, whether or not it's through cover crops or other methods to keep as many organics in the soil, because that is actually going to keep the water and the soil together even in times of rain, and you'll see less runoff. You'll be able to retain more nutrients and preserve the resources that you have on your land.
And it also can increase the amount of carbon that's retained by the soil, which was pretty interesting, but yeah.
Yes, in the organics, of course.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Greg?
Yeah, a quick question, and I didn't really know where or who to ask this to, so if you're not the right person, happy to get some advice. I heard the other day from someone, and again, I'm trying to just get facts and not have hearsay. Can the Ithaca wastewater treatment plant discharge into the lake unprocessed waste?
No. Well, okay, so
Is there
yes,
an overflow or a?
we do obviously have treated discharge that goes into the lake on a daily basis. There are unregulated discharges that are possible to happen, especially in times of massive overflow. It is something that we take every pain to avoid. I know it has happened in the past, but
It's not a regular occurrence?
No.
It's a very infrequent?
absolutely not. We're going to do everything possible to keep any kind of untreated wastewater from going into the lake.
And is there a place to go to get information on frequency of unregulated discharges?
Yes, all of that would be publicly available. I do know that the New York DEC has an online portal that you can get access to the data from all of the, basically any facility with a Speedies permit should have that recorded.
Okay, no, I appreciate that, thank you.
The Speedy's permit is,
Oh,
anybody know?
Darby probably knows.
Darby.
State discharge, I'm sorry, state permitted discharge elimination system. I might not have a point right
yes,
there.
sorry.
It's pollutant. Discharge.
Yeah.
Yes.
State pollutant discharge but I feel it's the E elimination.
Yes, we're getting a yes.
Pollution eliminated discharge. Yes, system.
Abigail's helping from the peanut gallery. over
Yes,
there,
thank
so
you.
Thank you. All right, any other questions? I had a couple there. Oh, okay. So let's see, one of the things was about the Owasco watershed regulations that, you know, you had waited for quite a while to hear back from the state. And I know, if I could say, it was kind of disappointing, right, with them not enforcing some of the protections that are already there, actually. And so I think I do know that part of the reason that your group was waiting for that, and some other groups, because that affects what we do, what we could do to protect the watershed for Cayuga Lake. And I didn't know if you wanted to say anything more about that.
Yes, I mean, each water purveyor has the ability to set forward, well, I think by law, watershed rules and regulations to protect their drinking water source. Some purveyors have put them in place. The city of Ithaca has one. I think it's quite dated. Bolton Point does not have any rules and regulations that govern the watershed that feeds into Bolton Point, for example. It's not something, as far as I understand, that has been actively used except for water purveyors that serve large cities, especially New York City and Syracuse, for example, where these protections are so strong that they don't actually have to do water treatment before delivered to individuals. And so in areas like ours where we don't have that situation, we were looking at the Owasco model to see what they had done, how successful it would be, the process that they would go through, with the anticipation that if successful, we would follow along behind and follow the same format. So when the state responded by actually coming forward with reductions to the protections that were already there, obviously it gave us great pause, which was sort of a sideline to say what a lot of our purveyors are now pursuing. It's something called the Drinking Water Source Protection Program, the DWSP2, that is supported by the state to work, basically provide a framework of guidelines, trying to work with adjacent municipalities in order to put in land use regulations that would be more protective of that drinking water source. It's really an avenue, I believe, that the state is encouraging that would be more collaborative in partnership rather than putting forward regulations and protections on the drinking water source. And I'll look to Darby if I'm reflecting this in an inappropriate manner. But I do see the DWSB2 being more of a collaborative process rather than putting forward regulations. But of course, the challenge to that is without regulations, we cannot go to a neighboring municipality and demand that they put in more restrictive protections. It's really up to them to pass their own zoning codes and their own regulations, and they could choose to do so or not.
So each municipality is kind of left on their own to do however strict regulations they want, but you don't have a uniform structure for everybody that affects the watershed.
Exactly, and of course, being a watershed, you know, the municipalities that have an impact in your watershed could be quite far away. And then that water trickles down through several more municipalities to get to your drinking water treatment plant. So without that collaboration, you're just sort of left at the whims of what other municipalities are going to do.
I appreciate you responding and trying to give us more of an overview of that. I know there is another organization, CWIO, the Cayuga Water, is it Cayuga Watershed?
Lake Watershed Intermunicipal Organization.
Oh, right. Thank you. I know they know even more about it. But do you happen to know how many municipalities are in the watershed offhand?
I believe the Cayuga Lake Watershed has over 50 municipalities and 8 counties in the watershed.
Yeah, so we really were hoping, at least a lot of us were really hoping that the state would help with that versus kind of leave it up to each municipality. Mm-hmm. So to help protect the watershed and the lake. Another question I had regarding on page 23, where you said the 2023 presentations. The first one, proposal to monitor and provide long-term groundwater level and water quality data for aquifer systems to Tompkins County. So any idea, or do you remember where's that going? Is that going anywhere?
Darby, could you help with that?
Because it seems like that, to me, that could be something really valuable if we're able to have some data for the levels in the aquifer and the quality of the water. Darby?
2 current water quality and quantity, so elevation monitors in the county that have been established by the USGS. That one is out by the airport, and I think the other one is by the Caroline Elementary School. And what came out of the work that committee did is we had a lot of questions, and if you did a countywide program, how would that impact even within one municipality? I very often give the example of Ulysses because you think about like Du Bois Road and some of those folks on the ridge, they have a lot of water quantity issues, but if a monitoring well is in Trumansburg where it's accessing, looking at an aquifer there, it's not going to give people the same information. So I actually learned a lot recently at a drought summit that the Northeast Regional Climate Center held and asked a lot of questions about, like, you know, in a county, what do you do for groundwater monitoring? Is having 2 wells enough? And there's so many different drought tools out there that actually I think could really help people understand, you know, like if you really need to be conserving water for a private well during dry times. And then in terms of quantity, I mean, there are fee-for-service, you know, you can go get your water tested at different labs in the county. So that's a question, because even that is going to be spotty across a municipality, across the county. You know, water quality in one area is going to be really different. And if you talk to your neighbors and their water wells, they might have different problems than you do. So it's hard to have a network like that because of, you know, our understanding of groundwater. And so we do have these aquifer studies. We're finishing up the Fall Creek aquifer study in the next couple of years. And, but, you know, that's, again, just kind of a segment of that Fall Creek watershed area. So I think the way that, especially Bill Capel, who's retired from USGS, you know, he says, yeah, they'd be great to have this network of wells, but then I think we were trying to get to what is the messaging that needs to happen. You know, if you see a water level change or, you know, water quality change, like who are you alerting? So trying to get those answers, I think, is still important before we take that, you know, requesting funding or take it to the next level.
Thank you. I could go on with a couple more questions, but I'm going to leave it there. It's a really great topic. Just want to refer back to what you asked us last and you brought up in your presentation. Is there any, I paraphrase this from my notes, but is there anything that we would like from your committee on how to give us advice or deliver information? Is it something like that you were asking?
Yes, as we go through the update of our water quality strategy report, are there issues that you would like more information on, topics that we haven't covered that you would like us to cover? Is there something that we can do to support the legislature in a different way or in a better way? How can we support you? Because of course we exist to advise and support the legislature.
Randy?
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is your area or not, but is there, if there's contamination, let's say that a train derails, which one did last year, by the way, along the lake, that nobody really became aware of. And they use diesel to ran their trains. And if I know of another instance where a fuel truck almost went in a creek West Branch Creek, that all that stuff runs downhill, right? So is there a way, do you track that anyway, whether the potential for risk for those types of things? Or is there an entity that responds to those incidents, and do they have a work plan for if something happens? I mean, if you get diesel spreads and it stays on top of the water and it's going to run. So I'm just curious.
My understanding is that whenever an incident like that occurs, there is what's called a spills report that is supposed to be submitted, I believe, within 24 hours to the New York State DEC. And then I believe it is the DEC that follows up to say if there's some kind of action that needs to be taken in order to address the spill. But, you know, say, for example, a leaky underground storage fuel tank at a gas station, or, you know, a significant spill at an automotive facility. All of that is supposed to be reported by law to the New York State DEC, and they would follow up.
So it'd be their responsibility to have an action plan already in place, in theory.
I believe they have guidelines and requirements in that.
Okay. All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
And I don't really have any other things to add. I think you guys are doing a wonderful job.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So a couple of things I was thinking is, I know you send a lot of different letters to organizations, often the state, and advocate for different things. If there's something that I mean, you do so many. At first, when I first started going, like, well, they should ask us maybe to do resolutions. You do quite a few, but if there is some targeted things, especially, things that you think are really important, let us know, or if you can help us form, if that would be helpful, be a letter or a resolution or something, at least to inform us, like, to come for a couple minutes and go, hey, this is going on, or to send us an email. I don't know what folks thought about that, but I'm going to also wrap it into something else. So one thing that's coming up for me, and what I want to get what the group thought about it and what you thought about it, Cynthia, was possibly maybe a 15-minute presentation for us on what are the biggest threats or concerns that we should know, as this committee should know about threats to our water resources, to kind of narrow it down. I don't know what you thought or other folks thought, to have that sometime in the coming year if possible, but what do you open it up?
I mean, sure, if Cynthia or others on the council feel like that would be important for us to know. I mean, I think more awareness is always, and education is always good. Although I do think it's helpful to know if there's things that we can do. It's one thing to know, okay, there's these problems, but what is it that we can do or support the council doing? But yeah.
Right, more focused, if you did that, more focused on what do we have levers to support. Is that something folks would be okay if they could, if Cynthia went back and asked if that's something they could provide? Folks are okay? I see some nods of heads. Okay.
Wonderful. That's deeply appreciated, and we'll definitely take advantage of that for sure.
All right, well, thank you very much for coming, and I didn't thank directly the folks from EMC because I'm the person that connects with that group, but but I wanted to make sure you brought this back, and I know Amanda goes to your meetings too as our liaison, but please thank them for us, and thank you for all the great work you folks do all year round.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
And thanks for coming today, Cynthia. Good to see you. All right, next we have from Department of Planning and Sustainability. It doesn't say any overall report, so we'll just get right into your topics. And first up is an update on the Municipal Parks and Trails Grant Program. So who's doing?
That's me.
Oh,
it's Darby.
there you
Darby
are.
on the Zoom.
Okay.
Darby on the Zoom.
Hi, Darby.
Hi, everyone. How are you?
Good. How are you? And that's on packet page 34.
Correct. 33, 34, somewhere in there?
Sure.
Yeah, we have a two-page memo. This
Oh,
is just an update. The way this grant program works, there's $50,000 in the 2024 budget for small grants to municipalities. And because they are $5,000 or smaller, we just approve those in-house by the Commissioner of Planning and Sustainability. And so we had a round open from the end of, it was 6 weeks that ended in the end of April. And we received 6 applications totaling $28,100. And so the second page of the packet shows the projects that were submitted, and all of them were approved because we had sufficient funds. And so we have Village of Cuba Heights, Village of Lansing, Town of Danby, Town of Dryden, Town of Enfield, and Town of Ithaca were all the applicants. And since we still have money remaining, we're going to follow what we did last year and just reopen the grant application. I'll get that posted this week, the information on the application software that we use. and get that announced to the municipality. So if your municipality, I didn't just read your municipality name off. I did have some inquiries from some of the others that did not have a proposal. I don't know if they just ran out of time or effort. The one issue is trying to get projects done within a year. I know even from last year, we have some that really pushed it to the edge, and we have to do a couple time extensions, which we don't really want to do because this is supposed to be a quick, fast program so that we can move on from year to year. So that is just, I want to give a quick update. If anybody has any questions, let me know.
Any questions, comments from the group? Greg?
Thanks, Darby. This is great. Glad to see my town on there as well. Is this something that historically we use all 50,000 annually for, or is it typically in a second round that the rest of this gets eaten up?
Yeah, I mean, this still really is only the third time we've done it. So the first time was 2019, then we skipped a couple years. And so in 2023, we reopened it because it had not been used up. So that's what we just figured we would do that again. I don't know if it was the timeline. I didn't hear from anyone of like, hey, we can't quite get it all done. So we'll reopen it for another 6 weeks and see what kind of response we receive.
Great, thank you.
I know I heard from at least one municipality that said they weren't going to apply this year, even though they had a need, because you're giving priority to the municipalities who hadn't received awards yet. So maybe now with the second round, I'll encourage them to apply for it. So good to know. Thank you. Anything else, Darby, that you have?
That's it for me. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. And next, we're going to have Abigail Connor, the environmental planner from DPS. You have two things for us. The first one is packet page 36, General Municipal Law 239 L, M, and N, the 2023 annual report. And here's those numbers you often hear about, and we're going to learn a little more about them.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Annie. So I'm just going to give an overview of a program that our department works on. It is required by the state through General Municipal Law 239 L, M, and N. We do call it 239 reviews in our office, which is confusing, I understand, but I may refer to that. It is that throughout this. So how that program works, I coordinate those reviews within our office. What state law says is that for certain projects, which I'll go over in just a second, a municipality needs to send their materials to the county for review prior to final action. As soon as those materials make it to us, the clock starts ticking. We have 30 days to review and comment on those, looking at the impact for the county as a whole. Before those 30 days are up, we send a letter to the municipality with comments or recommendations, and then the municipality has 30 days to respond to us, noting what their final action is. So not everything is required to be sent to us that a municipality is doing. It needs to meet 2 criteria. So if they're looking at something like a comp plan, zoning ordinance, social use permits, site plans, subdivisions, area variances, they take a look at those projects and see if they meet the geographical location requirement, which says if they're doing one of those things that is in, 500 feet of a municipal boundary, county or state park, county or state roads, drainage channels, state-owned land, or the boundary of an ag district, those must be submitted to us for review. And so that is an opportunity for us to see something that may have an impact on the county. To make this consistent and really clear, our department has a published guide that is given to all municipalities. It's on our website, so applicants, developers can see that as well to kind of get a heads up on what is a concern for us. That outlines guidance around wetlands and stream buffers, floodplain development, unique natural areas, public health, you can see the list there. So some of those we do internally, right? The wetlands that, we have that layer from the Water Resources Council, and we know floodplain development from our partners at FEMA, and then unique natural areas come from that Environmental Management Council, which I know we just heard from Kate about. But we also work closely with folks in highway at New York State DOT. We work closely with Terry when we think about building energy use, and with Fernando when we think about trails and access to outdoor recreation. So it's really we don't rely just on our expertise alone, we reach out to others. So once we go through that guide, we have those 30 days to respond. What we can do is send a letter that says that we don't believe there's any county impact, just to let them know they can move on with their process. We can send comments. They're not held to those. Typically those are things that maybe we just want to give them a heads up about. But we can also choose to submit a recommended modification that requires a supermajority of whatever board that letter returns to override. Most of you have probably received one of those letters CC'd from me. I will CC the legislator in that district if that is something that we're sending out. So just an overview for you all of what happened for us in 2023. We received 113 of those submissions from municipalities over the course of the year. We sent 69 no impact letters, 26 comment letters, and 18 recommended modification letters. Those numbers are a little up from last year. We had about 100 that came through to us in 2022, and we saw an increase pretty significantly in the comment letters and recommended modification letters. It's development, it depends on what's happening. I think we're seeing a little bit of a pickup after COVID, and I know this year we've already seen what I would anticipate will be an increase for 2024 as well. Does anyone have questions about that one? Randy.
When you send the recommended modification letters, do the municipalities have to adhere to those?
They requires for whatever board that action ends up at that they have a supermajority overrule that if they're not choosing to include it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Amanda?
Yeah, just on that too, so what's a comment letter? Just saying, here's what we think?
Here's what we think, but it's typically not something that we feel rises to a countywide impact. Okay. So if it's a countywide impact that we feel like really rises to, something that could impact the county, that's when we'll submit it as a recommended modification. But if we don't feel it holds that much, or it's coming from another body that's going to follow up with them, maybe through the permitting process, like through NISDOT, when NISDOT knows, they're going to have to come through for a permit for us, that would just be a second level of requiring them to do something that might just come as a comment from us.
Okay, great, thanks.
So just like one quick example could be, someone's going to build, something close to a stream or something, they might recommend, a larger buffer. That's just one example, right?
It's a great example of a recommended modification because of the work we do with water quality, that we find that could impact the county as a whole. Say someone is proposing to build something within 100-foot buffer of the perennial stream, we will typically recommend a modification that they move that building or whatever it is.
Further away.
With the outside of the 100-foot buffer.
Outside it. Right.
And I would say that guide, I think, is really helpful for us because it makes it very clear so we can be very consistent. Anything that comes, streams are a great example. For a perennial stream, we're always going to require a 100-foot buffer. Intermittent stream, we're always going to require 50 feet. And so I think I really appreciate the guide, which we're working on doing some updates to that as well, but it helps us stay consistent for municipalities as well.
Okay, any other questions? All right, thanks, Abigail. We'll have you move on to, your next presentation is about the proposed revisions to the Natural Infrastructure Capital Program Guidelines, and it's packet page 44.
Yes, so you will see my memo there on packet page 44, and the guidelines start on packet page 45. So I would say the proposed revisions here come out of conversations we had at the Planning Advisory Board, and then here last year. I brought 4 projects to you all in June for funding through this Natural Infrastructure Capital Program. They all met the guidelines, but one that we discussed there was that Thompson addition to the Cayuga Cliffs Preserve, where they were putting in a parking lot per se, with some other added features that was eligible at that point of what had been, what you'll see there as 5D, which just said trails and recreational value, which didn't quite meet what you'll see as the program purpose. And so there have been questions at the Planning Advisory Board and here as well of, are we following the program purpose? Are we following the program guidelines? And so you'll see the additions that we've made there that hopefully can tie that back to make it more concentrated as we think about downstream sedimentation and flooding. So you'll see the added 5C there, adds specific water quality.
I'm going to interrupt you there.
Yep.
So I just want, and I think you are being pretty clear, but this is not marked up to show us what the changes are. So want to be uber clear. So what was added was the whole section part C under 5. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I was going to walk through. In that memo, those 3 bullets are what have been added. This is what you see here is a clean copy. Just thank you, Annie, for that flag. So what's been added is, you'll see there is 5C, which is looking at water quality impacts. That was not there, is not in our current guidelines. And for us, that feels like it ties really closely into that program purpose. This is a program that's supposed to look at downstream flooding and sedimentation, and specific water quality projects were not all able to be included before. And then in item 5D, you'll see in the what you have in front of you, there is added language at the very end there that says that also meets the program purpose. I think it helps us tie back to ensure when people are applying that if we're holding tight to the guidelines, that program purpose is a really important part of these guidelines. And then that final item in 7, we've noted an increase from 1/3 to 1/2 of the assessed value, keeping the cap the same at $200,000. So that would allow someone to be awarded what was previously only 1/3 of the assessed value of the parcel, up to 1/2, but not changing that cap of $200,000. That would stay the same. That comes from when we've met with partners who have been applying for this. The cost of land continues to increase. We started this program in 2017. We don't feel that above $200,000 makes sense, but as we look at smaller parcels that tend to be more expensive, as we think about developable property, that makes sense to us. And noting
Can I just ask you, so you're keeping your cap, but raising the percentage that you'd be able to offer as a grant?
Correct, and that fund balance is healthy enough at this point for that increase because we're keeping that cap the same.
Norma?
I wanted to ask, have you updated the capital plan with this information yet?
We have not, because they have not been accepted here at the committee.
Okay, so the capital plan needs to be submitted. That was due last week. But the other thing I wanted to make sure that you all knew is we have postponed funding this because of the fund balance that they have through 2027. So the increase is not getting increasing that value has not
Been incorporated yet?
Right, and yeah, so we're not going to be, there's no further funding being added to this for the next few years, just so everybody's aware. Okay.
Just to clarify, that's a proposed change to the capital plan coming this year, or that was approved in the capital plan last year?
That was done last year.
Okay.
So it's
all blurring together.
It's currently not in the plan that you all, that we proposed at the retreat.
And it's not in the current 2024 budget year plan?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. I just want to make sure everybody knew that.
So it took off 24, 25, 26, and will resume funding in 27 per the capital plan as adopted in last year's budget?
Correct.
Okay.
That doesn't mean it can't be changed, but that is the way it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we were funding this at a level of how much annually?
200,000 per year.
And the fund balance is somewhere around 700, 800, 900?
You probably have it better, but it was pretty healthy.
Yeah, it
last time
is
you-
currently at just over $1 million.
Yeah, it's over $1 million.
Got healthier. Okay.
Okay, so we'll look at that. Thanks for bringing that up, Greg. So we'll look at that over the next couple of years and see if this makes any difference, proposed changes, if we adopt them. So this is, so you need a vote from us to adopt them, or? No? We accept. Do
Yeah,
we
what we're looking.
Need a vote to accept?
Here is a motion to accept.
Okay. Would anybody like to make a motion? Or do we have any other questions on it? Or I guess we could talk about it while it's on the floor. So why don't we go ahead? So a motion to accept. Do we have a second from Amanda? Any further discussion? Randy?
Yeah, we met on this. Thank you for reviewing that. I like what you've done here, and looking forward to seeing how things work out.
Thanks, Randy.
Yes, thanks for bringing that up. So yes, thanks for you. I think it was you and Katie that met with Randy and I a month or two ago to go over this, and Randy had some other ideas, but we were able to incorporate these. And so it was good to ask, and I think that had been brought up too. I think Greg or maybe other members have brought up the last year or so about, can we expand here? And so thanks for being responsive and having your own ideas on how to expand to be able to use these funds, but still keeping, within the purpose of the program. So anything else before we vote? Okay, all those in favor? That passes unanimously with Veronica just out of the room right now. Okay. And let's see. I guess that's it that you have. Thank you very much, Abigail, for coming.
Thank you.
And Terry Carroll has the Yellow Barn Solar introduction for us. This is something that had been mentioned before by Terry when he gave some of his reports, if I'm remembering correctly, and this committee had asked if the folks from Yellow Barn Solar Project could come and talk a little bit about their project. And here they are. So if you don't mind introducing those folks, Terry. And
yeah, that was my introduction right there, Annie. As a couple months ago, we introduced Yellow Barn Solar. We talked about the role that the Department of Planning and Sustainability was taking on the process and how we'd involved other departments within the county and soil and water to review the application. And this committee had mentioned they would love to hear more about the Yellow Barn Solar project. So I reached out to Mitch Klein and Evan Callahan from CS Energy, which are the developers for the Yellow Barn Solar project, and they were agreed to come today and give a presentation. So I'll pass it over to you, Evan and Mitch, and you can run through.
Yeah, and thanks for coming. We were hoping maybe about 5 or 10 minutes. Is that something you could do at the most? Okay.
Great. Well, apologies all to not be on video here. Unfortunately, I've got a puppy that needs to go to the vet, so I'm on the road, but Evan here will be able to pull up our presentation. We'll run through it quickly, just make sure we've got some time for questions at the end. We can dive right in. So, as Terry mentioned, so Yellow Barn Solar is being developed by CS Energy. We're going to jump into a little bit of introduction of CS Energy, introduction of the project, and then we can talk briefly through sort of the project status and next steps.
Did we lose audio from you?
Our company, so we are a contractor of solar and battery storage projects. Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello? Okay, sorry about that. As I was saying, CS Energy, we've been developing and building large-scale solar and battery storage projects across the country. We got our start purely as a contractor about 15, 16 years ago. And have built well over 1 gigawatt of projects throughout the country, primarily in the Northeast. Our headquarters is in New Jersey. New York State has been a very active market for us for the past about 5 years, particularly beginning in 2017, 2018, after the passage of the Clean Energy Standard. I think of the past 4 years, Solar Power World has rated us the #1 solar contractor by megawatts in New York, I think 3 of the 4 past years. So we're very active in the state, very busy. I believe there's some projects that we've actually constructed in Tompkins County on our EPC side. But obviously this project is one that we're developing in-house, and we'll talk a little bit about the project in particular. So just to give some background on the project and sort of introduce it. So the Yellow Barn Solar Project, we've been developing at this point since about late 2019. Was the state at which we first got in touch with landowners for the project and started negotiating for land. The project is a 160 megawatt solar project located in the towns of Lansing and Groton. I believe we've got a map in here just kind of roughly showing the location. So the project is spread across a mix of agricultural, forest, and scrubland. It's made up of a combination of options to lease and options to purchase, which is based on purely landowner preference. So about 70% of the leased acreage, or about 70% of the project acreage, which is about 800 total acres, will be leased, and about a third of it will be purchased. About 25% of the site is in the town of Lansing, and 75% is in the town of Groton. It's just north of the Dryden border. So this project has kind of morphed and shaped over the couple of years that we've been developing it. When we first engaged with the towns back in 2020, we sort of expected the project would be largely in the town of Lansing, just based on land negotiations that has shifted over time. And then at one point, after our land negotiations and before doing our detailed environmental investigations, we thought that the project might be 1,200, 1,300 acres total. Based on our field surveys and investigations, we've scaled the project back quite a bit. So we've actually shrunk the project down to about that 800 acre mark, based largely on identified wetlands and endangered species or threatened species concerns during those field surveys. So we've scaled back quite a bit. And then procedurally, just to talk through sort of where the project is at, procedure-wise and next steps. So we submitted this project into the state permitting process known as ORES, or Section 94C. All projects larger than 25 megawatts are required by the state to proceed through that state permitting process. So we've submitted our application into the state in November of last year. That application goes under review. We received a notice of incomplete application in January, which is standard. All projects receive at least one round of questions and requests for additional information. And we've been working in tandem with the state and with the towns and with our consultants to try to address those deficiencies over the past couple months. Right now, we're expecting to be able to file a supplement to our application to the state, hopefully around the end of this month, potentially sometime in June, based on some additional information we're gathering, particularly with the town of Groton. So we're working toward a completeness determination at this point. Whenever that determination is made, there's still the potential that we do another round of incomplete notice, but the hope is that when we submit this next round here in May or June, that within 60 days of that submission, the state would deem our application complete. At that point, once the application is deemed complete, the state has 60 days in which to issue draft potential conditions of a potential approval. Those conditions go out to the various local stakeholders for review and public comment. And then, typically, I think there's a 1 year clock on from the time at which the application is deemed complete for the state to make a final determination. So we've been seeing historically that from the time it's deemed complete, projects are, typically it's more like a 6 to 8 month process, but that 1 year mark is kind of the outside date. So given that, our construction start schedule is optimistically sometime in the early, first half of 2025, early spring 2025, but that's a little bit TBD given the ORES permitting process. So that's a big picture overview in terms of construction timing and the project going operational. We would be expecting an 18 to 24 month construction period for a project of this size. So if we're able to, get under construction in early to mid 2025, we would hope to be commercially operational and putting power out to the grid by the end of 2027. And at that point, we'd be generating clean electricity. Our estimates right now are showing that, we'd be generating enough electricity to power approximately 30,000 average New York homes. So we're very excited about that. So happy to address any questions, talk over anything that I blew through too quickly. And we're excited to be engaged and keep the conversation going.
Great, thank you. I'm going to open it up to see if we have a couple of questions. I wanted to ask one first. Could you, it was hard for me to tell where the property actually was. Can you give us a couple of cross streets or roads right adjacent to that
absolutely.
Area?
So we're near Buck Road and Van Ostrom Road in Lansing. As our sort of our western boundary is the Van Ostrom Road there in Lansing. Okay. And then we have property along Sobokill Hill Road, Pleasant Valley Road. I'm not sure what's our eastern boundary road there, Evan. We're not actually adjacent to it, but what's the road that's out to our east there in Groton?
Is it Cobb Street? No, it's. I can pull it up.
Yeah, we're alongside Cobb Street in Groton. Is a few of our large parcels.
Yeah, this is Cobb Street here that kind of runs through the center of the site.
Cobb, C-O-B-B?
Yep.
Thank you. Any questions from the group? Randy?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I'm curious how the process works. So when you generate electric, when the project's complete, is NYSEG required to buy that electric from you at a certain rate? And if so, what's that rate?
No, NYSEG is not required to purchase the power. Because this is a transmission level or a wholesale level project, it operates in exactly the same way financially as a gas plant or a coal plant, right? So whenever we want to put power onto the grid, we're effectively dumping it into a wholesale market, and retail sellers of electricity, be it NYSEG or other providers, can buy that electricity from the market at the market rate. So we're not a price setter; we're a price taker to the market, and we just operate on the wholesale basis.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think that's all the questions. So were you going to add something else, Mitch?
No, I'm happy to answer any of the questions. I know we're in contact with Terry, so if folks have additional questions, I'm sure we can follow up with additional answers.
Okay, Terry?
It looks like Mike, maybe Mike Sigler.
I believe it's Mike Sigler.
Mike, are you online?
Hi, yes, it's me.
Yeah.
I just had one question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
I'm just wondering, there are certain homeowners that are within the footprint of this solar project and are relatively close to, they might even be in the center of some of the arrays. I didn't know what was done for those homeowners.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, that's a great question. We've been in touch with a number of those particular neighbors that are sort of either looking directly at an array or have an array around their property. We definitely are not in contact yet with everybody, but we've probably got half a dozen conversations ongoing or outreach ongoing with about half a dozen of those neighboring properties. We're looking to try to get in touch with all those potentially affected residents here over the course of this year and the summer. The intent being that, we are able to specific impacts, to spectrum impact and avoidance, impact reduction and avoidance that we do across the project. Our goal is to sit with them and identify if there's, additional measures that we can be putting in place to support them and reduce those impacts. So that's ongoing. It definitely is not 100% at this point, but it is in process for sure.
Okay, and so that's Mike Sigler online, county legislator, and Mike, I'm thinking that's your district. Is that correct? That you represent?
It's Van Austin Road is my district, and then a lot of it kind of stretches out into Lee's district. But
okay.
Yeah, I mean it's not really called the transformer, but the interconnect will be on Van Austin, which is in my district. About 25% of it is in my district. My other question kind of is do you already have an interconnect agreement with NYSEG, or is it too far ahead of the process for that?
So the interconnection agreement is typically one of the last steps in the process. We are in the third and final study phase that the NYSEG and the NYSO, the New York Independent System Operator, the studies that they run for these projects. So we are in that third phase. That third phase is called the class year study. There's a lot of publicly available info on that, and that's slated to wrap up toward the end of this year. And so once that study is complete, we'll have our final cost estimates from NYSEG, and we'll be able to sign an interconnection agreement at that point.
Okay. I mean, I have more questions, but I know you, so I'll call you. All right.
Mike, you're always happy to answer your call.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Any other questions? Okay. Thanks for the presentation. We really appreciate your time on coming to us and giving us an update on this. So thanks, Evan and Mitch.
Absolutely.
I got everybody. All right, thank you.
Thanks for the time.
And did you get folks' names? Okay, great. Thank you, Terry. Anything else from you?
No, I'll just say that we'll continue to monitor and provide comments. We've already sent them some comments from the department, and we'll keep in touch if there's anything else this committee wants to know, or if you guys want to talk to them again at some point, let me know and we can arrange it.
Okay, great. Will this be the largest PV project in the county?
As proposed right now, yes.
Okay. All right, so good to keep updated on it. Thanks again. And
Thanks, everybody.
Turning now, so sorry, we're a little bit over time. I hope there's enough time for you folks at Recycling and Materials Management. So welcome. Any update, or should we go right into your topics and your resolutions? Leo and Kat?
I think there's one update or report discussion on the landfill leachate. Do you want that now, or?
Why don't we do the resolutions first?
Okay. Yeah, I have to leave a couple minutes before 12, so.
Okay, yeah, so why don't we do the resolutions first? So the first one, can I go ahead and start that one?
Yeah, so the first one's fairly simple and quick.
I'm just going to introduce it and get it on the floor.
Okay, sorry.
No worries. So this is packet page 47, a resolution for the award of contract confidential paper shredding services, Department of Recycling Materials Management, ID 12425. Can someone move that? Randy moves it, seconded by Veronica. Okay, Leo, tell us a little bit about that one.
Okay, yeah, this should be quick. So our department has been for a number of years supplying and paying for this service for all county departments, and it's just simply confidential paper data destruction. We received 3 quotes from 3 different vendors, and the lowest vendor is the current contractor, ProShred, and the impact of the annual cost is roughly $400. Annually, so.
The increase, okay.
Yep. And they've been doing a great job for us as well. Very few complaints from that company.
Okay, any questions, comments? All right, all those in favor? Great, that passes unanimously. Thank you. And then the next one we'll put on the floor, packet page 47. This is a resolution for a budget adjustment, Department of Recycling and Materials Management, acceptance of grant funding from the United States Department of Agriculture, ID 12429. Would someone like to move that one? Moved by Veronica, seconded by Amanda.
Annie, there is a revised version that was handed out.
You're right.
I just want to make sure we're moving the right one.
Yes, so was that the revised one we have in front of us that you folks were moving? We'll say yes? Okay, I thought so. So it looked like it just took out the word budget adjustment, and it had a few other things here, so I'll just detail that. It took out the whereas, if you don't mind explaining why there was revisions there?
Yeah,
Yep.
and that's on the floor, I can speak to it?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. So yes, this is a revised version, so the budget adjustment aspect of it has been removed, which means that the last whereas was removed, as well as the component, the last resolved, just speaking to the budget adjustment that we were requesting. As a broad overview, this is a grant application we submitted last year for a project that will be funded by the USDA. It's a 2-year project, and it's called Feeding People and Feeding Soils in Tompkins County. It's focused on composting and food waste reduction, and there's 2 key components to it. So it looks at supporting the commercial sector, which is primarily food-generating businesses, and through that, we'll leverage that Rebusiness Partners program that we spoke about last time, work through that to develop a model specifically focused on kind of the reduce, reuse, redistribute, and then food scraps recycling component of food waste, so looking whole hierarchy of how can we help reduce waste before it's created, and work with businesses directly to support them through that, and then also work with one of our project partners, the Friendship Donation Network, to actually pilot a prepared food donation and redistribution system. I'm really excited about that component because I think that's something that you hear a lot about, food donation and food distribution, but that prepared food seems to be one of the components that we see across New York State that is a little bit more challenging, yet that food is particularly desirable for agencies that are able to accept and redistribute it. And then the second component is focused on farm, so looking at enhancing composting systems on farm and then developing that finished product of compost that can be put back in as a soil amendment. So there'll be some training to improve on-site systems, direct technical assistance, as well as establishment of a new drop spot with one of our project partners. So again, our project partners for this initiatives would be Friendship Donation Network, TC3, and an expert from the Cornell Waste Management Institute. The grant's for $101,066. There is a 25% match, which is primarily in the form of staff salary and in-kind support. And as I mentioned, it's a 2-year project with start date in June of this year, moving all the way through May of 2026.
Okay, and there's no budget implications with this one? Okay. Any questions, comments before we vote? Pretty straightforward, everybody? Okay. Oh, Veronica?
Oh, just this sounds really exciting. Glad you're having that.
Thanks. I think it's going to be a really great project.
Yeah, and thank you for expanding that. I hear feedback from folks frequently about trying to maximize, I don't want to say reuse, but diversion, whether it's diversion of, food and, as you said, prepared food. It's just really from, instead of farm to table, it's like table to table almost. It's already ready, so that food is great to capture. And also, the drop-off spots, you said you're looking to increase too. I hear great feedback all the time, just heard it recently. Again, in Trumansburg and some other ones, feedback from the community members of how great that those drop-off spots for the compost are, so thank you.
That's great to hear. I know they're very popular, and we're looking at expanding and thinking about different models, so an on-farm system could be a really interesting strategy to try.
Mm-hmm. And your staff is very helpful too, I hear a lot, because a lot of people tell me they go and it's like, can I bring this? Can I bring that? You know, how can I package it up? And so your staff is really helpful doing education on the spot, so to speak, so thank you. All righty, so all those in favor? That passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
And yes, there's the Caswell landfill leachate update. What do you have for us about that?
Well, let's see. I believe last month I had mentioned the price increase from the wastewater treatment plant. That was roughly 317% increase. What I wanted to update the committee today on was the volume that we're seeing of leachate this year. We are close to our budgeted gallons already this year. 2024 will probably come close to being our largest leachate year. 2017, I believe we were around 2.8 million gallons. We could possibly see that this year from Caswell alone. So I think I'm projecting 2.5 million, but with that said, not only do we have that additional money or expense with the price increase, but we're also going to be paying for the additional volumes coming in. So we will look to put together, is that a budget transfer adjustment?
It would be an adjustment.
An adjustment. We will look to put a budget adjustment together for next month's meeting, and we'll have some good solid hard numbers as well with the volumes and the pricing. The next thing as far as leachate goes, we have been working with the Ithaca wastewater treatment plant on what they refer to as a 5-year trucked wastewater discharge permit. I don't think it's new, them issuing a permit, but I think it's new to them issuing the permit to the county. I don't know what kind of agreements have been in place. We've searched 4 different agreements, different past discussions. We've worked with administration to see what they have down there. But with that said, they have issued a permit to the county to discharge leachate for treatment and disposal from Caswell. They will be issuing a separate permit for the Hillview Road landfill leachate. So what comes with that is some terms and conditions, and some of those terms and conditions have kind of caused some concerns or challenges. As an example, they have a maximum amount of gallons that they'll accept per day in this permit. Originally for Caswell, it was 16,000 gallons. We did talk them into 25,000 gallons per day. This time of year, early spring till now, we could do 3 loads of leachate out of Caswell, and they are 8,000 gallon tankers. So that's roughly 24,000 gallons daily that we could take out of there. The concerning part is if it was more, we wouldn't be able to deliver that to the Ithaca wastewater treatment plant. So there's certain seasons, obviously spring season is when we see those peak volumes or those large volumes of leachate. With that, we have been kind of searching for backup facility. We've never had a backup facility for our leachate, but it certainly is a good idea and absolutely necessary to find one. We have not been very successful. We have found some locations that would be willing to take leachate during other seasons other than the peak season. When,
Right.
the seasons, of course, when we really don't have a need for a backup facility. But that's one of the concerning things. The chief operator, also they can, if they're having any kind of volume issues, they can reject loads as one of their conditions. So we could get there and, as I understand it, they could say we can't accept that today. And that could propose some real problems. They can also, in this permit, they can restrict deliveries to certain times of the day, certain days of the week, or even seasons of the year. So we're still trying to get better understanding of, what we can work out, what to expect. So we're kind of in the midst of that right now. So, but again, we will better lay that out, in a summary and with some detail next month.
Okay, great. Thank you for that update and good luck with that, sincerely. It sounds like we really need to have a backup plan or for the amount for overflow.
I guess the only thing that kind of piqued my interest a little bit, listening to Cynthia Brock, there could be maybe some discussions formed between the city and the county, and really kind of understanding how critical it is, that something like leachate from our closed landfills stays local. Again, just as far as the backup facilities, we've looked at places like Geneva, Canandaigua, and we're not having any luck. We could be looking at further transportation of leachate to a backup facility. It could be out west, Niagara Falls, it could be Albany area, and I would hate to have to tell you what the expense of that could be with the amount of leachate. So we'll keep working with our consultants, as well to try to come up with some things. But yeah.
Was that will that be part of the process as far as talking to the city?
Well, I only bring that up just hearing about the council's role and, what Cynthia kind of spoke to. I guess from where I sit, it would be great if I could better understand, any issues that the wastewater treatment plant may have during those peak seasons. If I understood that, then I, could possibly help, a little more with some remedies.
So that might be part of the process, is talking to the Ithaca wastewater treatment plant folks.
I could see
okay,
that.
I see Norma shaking her head. Yes. Okay, Randy.
Thanks for the great news. Well,
yeah.
Thank you, Amanda.
How much can be stored at Caswell? Is there like a storage area, a pond, or how is that stuff all stored?
Actually, I meant to kind of lead into that a little bit. So probably just within the last month and a half, we have put together and proposed capital project for some work done at the landfills with the leachate tanks currently that are there. But one of the tasks in that capital project would be setting a site up, primarily Caswell, with a temporary storage tank where we could draw out of our in-ground tanks into an above-ground temporary tank to store a certain amount of leachate.
Okay.
Yeah. Caswell's leachate tanks, there's two. They're both 8,000 gallon tanks versus Hillview, which I want to say are 30,000 gallon tanks. So we don't have that issue at Hillview. So.
Thank you.
Yep.
And Hillview also goes to Ithaca wastewater.
It does. We have not received that permit for Hillview yet. We'd probably expect it any day.
And for, you said 317% increase in the price to process at Ithaca wastewater treatment plant, right? And then, and you're looking at possibly 2.5 million gallons this year, which is how much of an increase over previous years?
About 1 million gallons on the average.
So a 317% price increase plus a third increase in volume. Okay, so we'll be hearing more about that next month. Wow.
And that doesn't include the additional cost of trucking as well.
Okay, so that's price per whatever, and then the volume is also going up.
Yes,
okay.
Yes, and one other condition that I had failed to mention, the wastewater treatment plant is requiring 2 sets of analytical, so instead of once a year sampling, testing the leachate, they're requiring it twice a year, starting this year.
So that increases the prices.
That will double, that'll double our budgeted number for that as well.
Okay. Sorry about that. Interesting. Anything else? And there was also a capital project payment summary. So if anybody had any questions, now would be the time. Okay, otherwise, thank you very much, Kat and Leo, for your report and the resolutions, and we look forward to, sounds like seeing you next month then too. Okay. Any other committee member reports, any updates on anything? Okay. And I just wanted to say before we adjourn, thanks to Vice Chair Veronica Pillar for their report and handling, the peak report and the resolutions at the last legislature meeting. I did review that, and I wanted to thank you very much for handling that very, very professionally. And also, I know there's a lot of questions on one of the resolutions, and so anyway, thank you for handling that, and thanks for the members for helping shepherd that stuff, through the process. So thanks everybody, and we are adjourned. We'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Thank you.